I'm checking if the video is live. Yeah, the video should be live now. Hi, Supermoms. I just finished my workout, so excuse me for not being really dressed up and like exercise hair and stuff. But I thought I got so inspired and I have such a nice level of energy. So I really wanted to share this with you because then I have, for the rest of my day, I'm booked in sessions and I was like, no, if I don't do it now, I will not do it. But I wanted to give you an update about from the free consultations I'm having, because for many of you, there is a similar thing coming up. And I feel like it's important to talk about this. And as if you saw the title that I put for this impromptu live, it will be about trauma. And if you're one of those who's thinking like, what trauma, that's not about me, then this is about you and it's for you. Because before I realized that like the old perception of trauma, like 20, 30 years ago, was that trauma is something violent. It's like usually rape, abuse of any kind, and or serious abandonment. That's what the trauma was, like too much happened too fast for your body, for you didn't feel safe in that situation and you couldn't really handle it. So a trauma was created and it was healed always in a therapy, and so often in like a talk therapy, that unfortunately made a lot of clients felt yucky. Like one of my clients, if you're watching, she told me after our first session, like, oh, I was so scared because all the time after my therapy I felt so yucky. Like I felt embarrassed, I felt dirty, and I felt ashamed because they just let me talk about it and like get deep in the mud with no relief really. So it was re-traumatizing for her to talk about it. And she said, and after session with you, I was just, I felt no yuckiness at all. I felt actually much better and relieved and lighter. So that's the difference between therapy, the old style therapy. Hopefully and luckily the situation is moving, it's changing. There's been more research done on trauma, and they found out that trauma, they expanded the definition of trauma. So it's not just what happened to you in terms of your physical safety and like external circumstances, but it is what you made it mean, and if it got processed by your body and emotionally as well. Yeah, so it can range, trauma is actually a spectrum. So it can range from those heavy cases that I mentioned all the way to, for example, being bitten by a dog when you were a child and you got really scared and nobody talked to you afterwards. Nobody helped you heal that wound. So mentally, like you have a scar in your soul and you're still afraid of dogs, and it still comes up. Even if you see a dog on the other side of the street, like 200 meters away, you still feel like exactly the same emotions in your body. Yeah, so there's a whole spectrum. I just talked to another lady. She was actually afraid to go outside if there were people. She was okay to be alone on the street in the middle of the night, paradoxically, like I would be scared of that. But for her, the problem was if there were men walking on the street, and she had no idea why she had like these kind of panicky attacks. And only when she started diving deeper, she realized, we went back to her childhood and she realized that it was coming from an experience when she was playing with her sister. They were both like 6 and 8 years old. And there was a group of boys who were older, bigger, and they took their toys. And like you could think like a silly experience, huh? But what happened, the trauma that happened afterwards was that they came home, they complained to their mom went to the family of the boy because they knew them. And the mom of the boy got mad with her, like what the heck? So even though they got back their toys, their own mom was embarrassed, like, oh, I had to go on your behalf and you shouldn't have, yeah, because she hit the boy. I forgot to mention, because the lady, when she was small, the girl, she hit the boy in return. So they took their toys, but when he was leaving, she hit the boy, so he got hurt. So the mom of the boy, she was mad, like, oh, and she hit him and he has like a wound on his head. And And her mom, she felt mad with her, like, how come you hit him and now he's hurt and I had to be embarrassed by his mom and taking that blame on you that you didn't behave. And she felt like, phew. So not that she didn't get support from her mom, and not only she didn't feel protected by her mom, but she felt shamed by her, because stood up on behalf of her and her sister. She like mustered the courage, which was amazing. She should have been praised for it, like that she stood up to a bully. And no, instead what her mom did, she made her feel guilty and ashamed of herself, and made her feel like basically you should not protect yourself. Like when you get into trouble, do not protect yourself. So that's why now walking down the street, like she was feeling super vulnerable, because what if somebody would attack her and she cannot protect herself? You see, and that was all subconscious. Of course, she was not like thinking about this walking down the street, but only when working really deep in those layers, she realized what happened. So long story short, back to the spectrum, like the trauma spectrum. So it can go really from something serious to something you don't even remember, or something that looks like from somebody else's point of view, like a silly thing, but it got stuck with you. Because trauma is actually a time machine. You can think about it as a time machine. It takes you back to the moment in the past when it happened. It completely hijacks all of your energy, your body, your back right there in that moment, and you're reliving those emotions again, and you cannot help it. You feel out of control. You see? So why am I mentioning this? And why do I say that it's important for moms to be aware of trauma? Like maybe you see already where I'm coming with this. Because when you feel like you get triggered by your kids and you're looking for ways how to discipline them, how to basically manipulate and control them, that they don't push your buttons, because they are the best at pushing your buttons, right? That's what I know from my own experience. My daughter was the best at making me really angry and stressed, and it's as if she knew exactly where my buttons are, even when she was like a year and a half old. So it's not about the kids pushing the buttons. It's you having them in the first place. Those buttons are your traumas. You're being triggered. Your kids do something that makes you feel disrespected, unheard, your boundaries being crossed, them demanding more than you can give, whatever it is that happened to you in your past, most likely in your childhood, and you're reliving those feelings again because you didn't process them, you didn't heal that. You see? So that's true for situations where when too much happened too fast, just to finish the little trauma awareness session. So either trauma is something that happened too much, too fast. You didn't have the support of ideally a loving adult who would explain you what happened, help you deal with those feelings, help you prepare for the next time, help you make it okay, don't make you feel ashamed or guilty. Whatever happened was not your fault. That's what it should have been instead. Da 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 da. Trauma is also too little for too long, which is what I had. That's the developmental trauma. It's not the shock that something surprised you suddenly that happened and you didn't know how to cope. But the developmental trauma is not getting the love, attention, care unconditionally for long periods of time. So you were made felt that you need to deserve to be loved. You need to always do your best to really deserve the praise, to the appreciation. I felt like my mom was nice to me only when I was nice to her, only when I did something for her to help her, or only when I figured out how to make her happy, then she was nice to me. And I don't blame her for anything because I know it's her trauma. I was most likely triggering her trauma and her wounds from her parents. It's like they didn't know better. Those generations had to go through so much, and war, and I was growing up in communist Czechoslovakia. So there was so much of like historically collective trauma, then plus on top like the women, the kind of trauma, their role in the family and everything. So it's just that baggage was being pushed from one generation to another one. And this was my developmental trauma. And I felt at the beginning when I heard about trauma, I was like, I have nothing to complain about. I had an amazing childhood. I always had everything. I had both parents. They both loved me. I had amazing childhood. But when I started learning about trauma and what developmental trauma is and too little for too long, I was like, oh yeah, this is me. And this is where the perfectionist is coming from. This is where the high achiever is coming from. That's why I didn't feel good enough if I was not doing enough. if I was not constantly like pushing, running 100 miles an hour just to prove that I can be the superwoman, and just everybody to have a look at me and say like, how do you do it all? I would love to. I was paying a high price for that. I was putting on a beautiful facade on the outside, like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'm doing my best. I'm not a lazy bum somewhere on the sofa. I keep doing my best. That's where it was all coming from. So, key takeaways. It's important to be aware of trauma, because it doesn't mean that if you were not sexually abused in your childhood that you don't have a trauma. Trauma is a spectrum. It can be something seemingly small, but it just didn't got processed by your child brain at the time. It can be too much, too fast as a shock trauma, or it can be too little for too long as developmental trauma. They are both equally damaging and harmful, and you need to work on both of them. You need to be careful how you work on it, because if you choose an old school therapist and you get into a talk therapy, there's a risk of getting some of those yucky feeling and being re-traumatized. So look ideally for the new ways that are including body and body processing, because trauma got stuck in your body. That's, for example, you heal the trauma you don't even remember, because the parts of the brain responsible for memory, they develop only like 3-4 at the age of 3-4-5, it depends. But your body remembers how it was feeling, because there were chemicals created of stress, panic, and like scared for life, for my life when you were infant. Even some of the people remember even that they were like in the womb as an embryo. They remember feeling some of those experiences. So choose to work with somebody who is combining the body techniques into it, because that's where oftentimes you can go fastest, deep down into the core of the issue and start healing that without spending months and months just talking about it. Yeah, it is possible. And there's no stigma in looking for help. It doesn't mean that if you feel like, oh, I don't want to talk even about needing a therapist because I'm not that kind of woman, I'm not that screwed up, it's not me. Think twice. Okay, so my invitation for you is to think back about your triggers and try to peel those layers. What are the triggers about? If my child does something that makes me like go ballistic and lose it, why is that? What am I feeling? When is the first time I felt it in my life? Try to go back. Trace that feeling in your body. What was it that triggered you? Yeah. If you need any help with that, I'm here. I'm still doing the free consultations. This week, I think I'm already booked almost full, but for next week, there are still slots. So grab that link somewhere. But the key point is really being a better mom means you know your stuff. You clean out whatever needs to get cleaned out in you so that you don't get triggered by your kids and you don't inflict the same on them, especially the developmental trauma, that you don't give them the same baggage and they will have to be here in your place 20 years later. Good. It is possible to get help. It is possible to heal it. All trauma is possible to heal, no matter what it is, how long ago it happened, how much you feel you're screwed up or not. It is possible to heal it. So get the help. Good. I'm off. I'm getting cold. I need to take the shower and start my session. So I wish you a great day. Let me know in the comments or send me a private note if you want to talk and if you want to just bounce some ideas and check like, is this a trauma or is that like, what am I feeling? Why is this coming? I'm here to help you. Okay? So take that help. Take care. Bye.